Hey everybody, this is Alicia from the Pigeon Letters design team, and I'm here with a new project for you. And this month we are going to use Procreate to create a kind of vintage retro flowy seed packet sort of illustration. So it's not right on the nose, like you're not going to look at it and be like, oh, that's a seed packet, but it's inspired by them, and we're going to make it our own. We're going to make it fun and colorful and whimsical. So grab your tablet with Procreate, and we're going to use some Pigeon Letters Procreate brushes and jump right in. So let's go. So here is a rough example of what we're going to do. This was my sample. We're going to make it again together. But what we're doing is we're making a seed packet illustration, but I wanted to do it in a way that feels a little more whimsical, that's not so on the nose. So you still have a few details here like you would on a seed packet, the name, 10 cents, things like that. And of course, an illustration of the flowers and the type of flowers. But other than that, it's just sort of more whimsical. It can be printed out as a cute little, print for your wall or something like that. So I'm going to walk you through all the steps to create something that's in your own kind of fun and whimsical style like this. And so the first thing we need to do, we don't need too many references for this, which is really nice. It's really all about going with the flow, filling in the space, making the shapes fit, and just kind of having fun and letting it be a relaxing experience. So the first thing that we're going to need, you need the program Procreate, which I just had open. And then for this project, I'm using the Pigeon Letters Vintage Texture Procreate brush set. I really like this. I don't use a ton of texture in my work, but I think that some of the texture brushes that are in this set are subtle enough that they still work with my more flat style. And so I'm going to show you alternate ways to use them if you want to keep it more subtle, or if you want to go into it and really add a lot of texture if that's your style. But I really love this set. I find that I use these brushes a lot, even if I'm making a more flat style. So that's the first thing we need. You can grab those on the Pigeon Letters website. The next two things we need are, we need a seed packet. I actually have this exact vintage seed packet hanging on the wall in my guest room, which is like a California themed room. And what is fun about this is that what's fun about this project is that we're not directly trying to copy a seed packet. What we're doing is we're getting inspired by them. So the only thing we're using this reference for is to see what information is on the seed packet. So let's just take a quick look. What's on here? Well, obviously an illustration of the flower, very important, very important. The name of the flower, I'm going to use California Poppy. I love them. I think they're really cute flowers and they're kind of fun to draw. We have the name of the seed company, the location. This one's San Antonio, Texas. They have a little quote here, and then price, 15 cents. And there's a little write-up here. So we might add some of those details, and we're just going to make them up as we go, because that's what this project is all about, is having some fun and kind of just letting things flow. So we have that. We know what information we need. The next thing we need is a reference of what flower we're using. So if you're not familiar with a California poppy, they are not kind of the Icelandic ones that look like crumpled crepe paper. These ones actually have, they're bright orange. They're so pretty, and they have 4 petals that are pretty evenly shaped. And they kind of, when they're not full, you can see it here, they kind of go in this little cone shape in some ways, and the petals overlap each other, but when they're wide open, they're just so pretty. And obviously you can see the fields of them out in California, which is so beautiful. But we're just going to use a couple photos of these for a quick reference, because the idea here is, again, keeping things simple and loose. We're not throwing a ton of detail in here. We just want general shapes. So I'm going to come back and reference probably these two overall. I know what this flower looks like in my head. That's why I think it's a good one to use, something that you're very familiar with. And also, it's not a very complicated flower to draw, even if I did want to put a lot of detail in. So we are going to jump back into Procreate. And so again, here was the initial one I worked up. We're going to do it a little bit differently because we're doing it together this time. But I just wanted you to see what we're aiming for. I may or may not keep all of the same elements here. I may add a little bit more texture, but we're going to go with it and see where it goes. So the first thing we need to do is go to our gallery and open a new document. I like to do an 8x10. I already have it saved here. 8x10, I use sRGB. You can use whatever your preference is, but I think 8x10 is a really good size. I'm going to switch my thing here to a black pencil. And then we want to go to, if you haven't installed them already, obviously do that, but we're going to go to the vintage texture brushes. So I want to just show you a few of the ones that I really want to use on this project. So first of all, we need to do a sketch. So we need a pencil. There are a few pencil options. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. This one is the Pigeon pencil. The next option we have is Curio ink. There's also Dry Edger. Let's see if that would be a good pencil. Okay, so just decide which one you want to use to sketch. I'm going to use the second one that we tried, which was Curio ink. I like that as a pencil to sketch with. So I'm just going to clear that layer. So to kind of reference back to our seed packet, whoops, there we go. We know that it needs to be rectangular. Maybe there'll be a little flap on the top or the bottom, depending on orientation. And we need to make sure that we have room for the floral illustration, and then whatever other additional, the name of the flower, and then whatever additional words we want to add on. So let's go ahead and make the general shape. And I do want to repeat this again and again, that this is not about perfection. You can come in here and do the trick where you kind of hold your line down and get a perfectly straight line if that's what you want. But I'm not going to do that. We're going to let this be fun and free and flowy and just really loose. So I'm going to do my best here without tilting the iPad. I'm going to go ahead and tilt myself, actually. There we go. And this is just the first, you know, sketch. This is so uneven. I want a little loose, but not crazy. Come down and just, again, this is the sketch, so. All right, so I am going to add that little flap in, I think. So I'm going to do a light line here, and then just sketch that in like that. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is figure out how I want this layout to be. So again, with this being a sketch, what I'm going to do actually is add a second layer, because this is going to get messy, and then I'm going to go back over it. I know that I want my words, I think I want my words to be top and bottom. So just really quickly, I'm going to write California. It's not even going to fit all the way. And then poppies. Just going to move this over a tad so it's centered. So now I want to fill this center area in with the poppies, and what I would like to do, which, let me go back to my sample version. I want to show you. I kind of want them to fill in this space and kind of interlock into each other, because I want to go for that kind of 60s psychedelic poster vibe. In a way, it's not like right on the nose, but I'm going for that vibe. So I just want them to be kind of scattered about in here. So I'm just going to start by drawing a couple poppies and then filling it in from there. So again, we remember when we look back at the poppies that they have 4 petals. And depending on which angle you look at them, they can be wide open like this. Petals are totally open and cheerful and happy, or, you know, they can be kind of folded and facing one direction or the other. So I'm going to make a mix of these styles. Okay, we're back. So for consistency's sake, I did actually just go through and took the sketch from my initial version that I showed you, and I re-sketched out the same ones so that everything kind of looks the same, but it is going to be the same process. You're just filling in these, these spaces here with all of your different flower sizes. So you can see I have these large ones here that I had started with. I did keep those. And along the way I have a mix of kind of open ones that are kind of visible from the side, and then you have the fully side view ones that are a lot smaller, and those filled in these spaces so that if you look at the shape here, there is generally, there is still like a square shape to the whole thing, but they've filled in most of those gaps. I probably could add like a little petal here if I wanted to. We'll see when I fill it out. It doesn't have to be perfectly filled in. But yeah, that's how that is. So just go ahead and fill it in and vary those sizes. You want some large, some small. It can be easier to start with larger ones and then fill the small ones in as you go along. I just want to make sure I add these little dots in here for the center. I think that's all of them. So I did sketch out the lettering here, but now I want to go back and I want to make it in that kind of bubble lettering. So these are kind of like bubble letters, and then you're going to alter kind of the thickness and the waviness of the shape and let it just fill in with itself. So I've drawn the C. It kind of looks like a basic bubble C. So now for the A, I'm going to wave that line around, and then there's a little bit of space here for the flower, so I'm just going to like draw the end of that A, make that a little bit longer. Fill that in, and then for the L, it could kind of go back on top of this guy here, like on top of the A. That's kind of fun. Now the I can be that big. Cali 4, so we need an F. And see how I just let that kind of fill in this gap here? This is why I say this is very free flowing, and there's not a lot of precision to it. You're just kind of vibing it out. You're seeing how it feels. So let me think through the next 3 letters. We have an O. An O is really nice to make small, and then an R. So I'm going to put my layers back on. All right, so I think that that looks good. I'm gonna add one more layer now. So this is gonna be for those extra things. So again, looking at the seed packet, we have price 15 cents could go on there. Lone Star Seed Co., San Antonio, Texas, and then there's a little quote. So I think, I don't want Lone Star Seed Co., but I think Golden State Seed Co. might be cute. And because I've kind of run out of room on the packet itself, I'm going to do it on this flap part. And I'm just writing it in cursive, my own handwriting. So Golden State Seed Co. I'm just going to pop it in. Okay, that's clearly not centered, so I'm going to move it over so it is. So you can kind of have fun with this in the sense that, like, say you're doing California poppies and you're from California, maybe you could have, you know, your name, Seed Co., and then have like your town underneath. I'm not putting a town, I'm just going to leave it at that, but you could do that. And then I'm going to do 6 cents. And for fun, I'm going to put a year. I don't think on this seed packet there's like a year anywhere. Made in the USA, number 620. But I thought for fun, because I'm going with this whole like California summer of love kind of theme, I'll do let's do 1969. That feels like a good, that wasn't the summer of love, but that feels like a good year. So I think that actually looks kind of cool. And now if you wanted, you could go in and add some like line detail to your sketch. What I'm actually going to do is duplicate this. I'm going to turn the bottom one off. That's still all the separate layers. This one I'm going to flatten, and I'm going to make it multiply, and I'm going to make the opacity about 50%. And then that way when I go to create the actual art, the sketch will still show up above it, but it won't be so overwhelmingly intense that I can actually see what I'm doing. I might actually drop the opacity. So anyway, I'm going to turn that layer off though. The next thing, make a new layer, that we need to do is figure out how we're going to draw it. So we're going to go back to our vintage texture pens and just grab a nice orange here, since poppies are orange, or these ones are. We have a few options for actually drawing or inking it. So here is the vintage monoline. I do like this. It's a nice monoline that has a little bit of texture to the edge of it, so it's not super crisp. We have vintage flexible nib, which is kind of fun if you want to have a little variation in what you're doing. So as you draw, maybe it's giving you a little unpredictability. We have pulpy pointed pen, which is also a fun one to draw with. This is nice. It's definitely more textured than either of the other two, which can be really cool, drawing your flowers. Add a little texture to that. So I think those are going to be my main 3 options for drawing this. So I'm going to go with vintage monoline. Like I said before, I don't use a ton of texture in my works, but I think that this is just textured enough to feel interesting. Although I mean, I really do like this one, but I'm going to clear the layer. We're going to stay with vintage monoline, but obviously go with your gut, whichever one you like. So I'm going to turn my sketch back on. Might drop the opacity a little bit more. So I'm going to start with inking out the poppies themselves. All I'm going to do is take this orange color that I started with, come in with the vintage monoline pen, and go over it. And again, I'm keeping it very loose. I'm not worrying about it being perfection. We're just going to fill in. And now what's going to make this kind of fun is that when we have these petals here where there's an overlap, instead of just kind of drawing it and filling it in and letting it be like that, we're going to make sure that there's a gap there, a little white space. So I'm going to come in, draw that outside, but the inner edge, I'm going to leave a gap there. That way, I'm actually going to fix this little bit here. So that way when I turn the sketch off, you can kind of see there's a white space. Another option is you could come here and kind of draw it, fill it in, and then take an eraser and come through. Whichever option that you prefer. But I'm going to go ahead and do them as separate little chunks. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in all of these and be right back. All right, so all of the poppies have been inked. I'm just going to turn the sketch off so you can see how they look. I think they look really fun. Projects like this I always think are really cool because most of your hard work is done in the sketch phase. It's trying to finalize composition and the sketch, and then when you need your inking to be just really loose, you can kind of just go in and it feels like almost meditative. You're just following the lines and letting it go, and you're kind of going outside the lines, and that's okay. You're just letting it go where it feels like it needs to be, and that's what makes this so fun, keeps it feeling loose and not so just uptight and, you know, crisp and all those words that would describe something that's not this. So the next thing we have to do is our words. Where's this? California poppy. I'm gonna go for a blue, I think, because orange and blue pair really well together. And I think that would be a nice contrast here. So if I can find what kind of blue I'm looking for, I will pick one, and then I will jump in, and it's the same thing, just keep it loose. I'm using the same pen. You can switch your pen up, obviously. I do really love the vintage monoline pen from this set. I use it a lot because it's a nice monoline, but there's just enough interest to it. You know what? I wasn't going to use this color, but I might give it a try. There's just enough texture to the edge of it that makes it feel really interesting to me. I really, really like this pen. I use it a lot. So I'm going to dive in and now do my words. All right, so now if we pop the sketch back on, we see we still have to do the actual seed packet itself, and then the lettering, the little tidbits. And then after that, it's just going to be adding a little bit of texture for fun. So I think I want my background to be a light pink. So I'm going to, and by background, I mean background of the seed packet. And I'm saying that slowly because I have to remember that I have the background of the actual image right now, which is white, and then the seed packet itself. So let's draw out the seed packet. I'm going to do kind of a peachy pink and see how that looks, and then I might change it from there. For this brush, I might, I don't know. I want to do the pulpy pointed pen. I think I do. I think I really want to use that. So if you remember, this one had a really good texture to it. I think that'll look kind of fun. So let's dive on in. Okay, so I think that looks good. So a couple steps left. We have to add the little dots in the middle. I don't even need the sketch for that because it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to add a layer on top. Oops. And that one I will go back to the vintage monoline. Just one thickness throughout. And I need to pick a nice color of this. Maybe I'll go for a pink. Kind of keep it really bright. See how that looks? It's pretty fun. Some good contrast. Vary the shapes of them, you know, can be kind of neat to have like two larger and one smaller. And now I have to add my lettering. So I'm going to make another layer for that. Everything's on its own layer, so we can adjust as we need to. So for this, I think, I don't know if I want it to be a white. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I could do this in the vintage monoline. Part of me kind of wants to do it in like a pencil. So let's see. Let's just take this orange, for example. I'm on a new layer. Just see, do I like, ooh, not that. That's too big. That might be kind of fun to add a little texture by doing it with pencil. So let's try it in this orange and see if I like it. Turn our sketch off. It looks kind of cute. I sort of like that it's not a pen, that it's more of a pencil. What I am going to do, though, is take a white on a new layer, and you can see in the sketch here, there's like a line depicting that that's folded flat. I'm just going to do that really quick. It's easier for me to draw top to bottom. And I can tell you right now that white is way too light, so I don't use a ton of black in my work, but I will go for maybe like a charcoal-ish color. Let's see if that works. I always like to turn off the sketch to get the full idea here. I think what I'll do, that still doesn't feel right to me. I think instead of a pencil line, maybe that one should be. Let's see. Maybe I'll go with the pointed pen. Let's try that. There, I like that. So I went with the pulpy pointed pen, so we have a little texture. I kept the line very not straight, it's very wobbly, and I lifted the pen a couple times so that you have the indication that there is a fold there, but it's not just a solid line, and I do like that. So the last part that I have to do here, you see on the sketch, is my year and my 6 cents that I'm doing. So add one more new layer. Let's do that in the pink. I'm gonna take this pink color back. Let's try that. Don't know if I'll like it or not. And I'm gonna keep this pulpy pointed pen. Let's see how that looks. I do really like that. Okay. I like that a lot. Okay, so now I think the actual last bit I need to do is add a little bit of texture in here, some shading and stuff. So we want to do that underneath all of this. So first of all, let's put a layer here behind the seed packet. I'm going to show you a few options of what you can do. Not sure yet what I'm going to keep, but show you what you could do. First of all, if you want to put a shadow behind your seed packet, I'm going to move this actually so that it's all centered. One moment. There we go. If you would like to have a shadow underneath the seed packet, take a darker color. So I'm going to take this orange and then make it a bit darker. These are really, really cool textures here to use. I like to use, I think it's Ancestry. I always know when I see them. Yeah, I think it's Ancestry that I like to use sometimes. Just make a nice line there on the side and the bottom. Look how cool. It's like popping up from your page. So that's really fun. I may actually keep that. I like that. And then something else you can do, we're going to make a layer over the seed packet but under the flowers, is I like to take, let's see what color I want to use. Maybe I'll go with that pink again. I love these brushes here at the bottom, Dusting, Oxidized, and Folk Noise. These are really cool for adding just the most subtle little bit of texture when you feel like something just needs a little extra but you don't know what. These are just so fun. So if you zoom in, you can see what that one did. That was oxidized, so that's really cool. So if I undo that and I show you Dusting, that one's even more subtle, and I do use this one a lot as well. There's just like little specks everywhere. So I might use this one. I'll lift your pen, get a few more down. I think that's really fun. And then I think on top of my letters, I think the letters could use a little something. So I'm going to take white, and I think I'm going to stick with Dusting. And I'm going to go here on top of my letters, new layer, and then make a clipping mask so that it only applies to the letters. I don't want this to apply anywhere else. And I'm going to do the same brush. We're going to see how that looks. Just a few little speckles on top of our letters with white. I think that's so fun. And then, do we need any other? We could do a little texture in the flowers. So if you go to your flower layer, add a new layer, another clipping mask, and you want to take kind of that orange, darken it a little bit. Oops. Or just so it's visible, let me just do it in like a red orange. You could take let's see, antique shader might be cool. Kind of add some texture like that. And you can change the size of your brush too if you maybe only want the texture like in the middle. If that's kind of a style you like. I think that you could do Attic would be cool. This one blends really well. So again, if we make it smaller, kind of build it up as it gets more to the center, that actually does look really cool. I do use A-Track quite a bit as well. This one also can build. It's a lot, the texture is a bit smaller in grain, but that one looks really cool and subtle. That looks really cool. Again, I don't use a ton of shading in my work, but I actually really like the way that looks. It's really fun. So that's something you could do if that's a style you like. This reminds me of like if I was drawing a peach. I would totally do that for a peach. That's really cute though. Like I don't use a lot of shading, but I kind of want to because I like how that looks. It's fun. That's really fun. I keep looking at it. I'm like, that's not bad. I like that. I am going to remove that just because my style is very flat. So otherwise, I think this is good to go. I think this is, I'm going to call mine finished. You can go in and add little details if you want to add little lines in here, if you love and want to add some of those. That one I just did was A-Track. If you want to do some shading and texturing like that. Like I said, I really love the brushes in this pack because they're buildable but they're subtle enough for somebody like me who tends to do a lot of flat design work. It allows me to add some texture without feeling so overwhelmed in the texture department. But yeah, I think that's it. I like that. Here's our little whimsical retro inspired seed packet. I think this would be really cute printed out somewhere, you know, especially for spring and summer. As we get into the warmer months, it might make a nice little piece of art, or you can make a collection of them if you wanted, like to have a couple different, you know, flower seed packets. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that was fun, and I would love to see what you do. So make sure that you follow the pigeon letters and you follow me at the Alicia Bruce. Tag us both if you decide to make a project like this, because I know that we would love to see it. So peace. Thanks.